For part A, place a 250 milliliter conical flask in an ice bath and add 10 cubic centimeters of cooled concentrated sulfuric acid. To this then add 5 cubic centimeters of methyl benzoate. You should notice that all of these have been already measured out for you. This mixture should then be left to cool to approximately 0 degrees Celsius. Now you can add 6.5 cubic centimeters of the 1-to-1 mixture of concentrated sulfuric acid and concentrated nitric acid. The best way to do this is to add 1 cubic centimeter at a time to the mixture using a pipette over about 10 minutes. You should try to ensure the temperature of the reaction doesn't go over 20 degrees Celsius. Once all of this mixture is added, the solution in the conical flask is poured over ice in a 250 cubic centimeter beaker. You should have about 25 grams of ice in this, but it doesn't have to be anywhere close to exact, just as long as you have enough ice to do it. Once all of the ice has melted, you need to filter the solution that contains the impure solid. You're going to do this using a vacuum filtration. So the way you set this up is you take a filter flask that's a very thick-walled and has the side arm, clamp that, attach the thick-walled rubber hose to the side arm and to the vacuum tap, then put in a rubber disc and then the Buchner funnel, and then 2 pieces of filter paper to it, which you should then wash down with water. At that point you can turn on the vacuum and you should hear it sucking through the filter paper. At that point you can just add in the solution with the impure solid. The liquid should get sucked out very, very quickly. You then wash first of all with cold deionized water and then twice with cold methanol. Best way to do this is not to add the liquid straight into the solid, but to take your reaction vessel, put in the wash liquid, swirl it around to catch any residual solid, and then add that to the filter funnel. Once you have the washed solid, we now need to purify it by recrystallizing it from methanol. First of all, you need to heat the methanol on a hot plate, and once it's hot, you need to add the solid to it. It's very important to use the minimum amount of methanol. For this part, maybe 10 to 12 cubic centimeters of methanol should be enough. If your solid is still not dissolving very well, increase the heat rather than adding more methanol. Once it's all dissolved, then you allow this mixture to cool down and hopefully you will see pretty little crystals coming back out again. Once you've had all those crystals formed, do a vacuum filtration again using the same process as before. Take that solid, put it in a weighing boat or an evaporating dish and place it in the oven to dry. Once it's dried, you can try and record the melting point of these crystals. The literature value is 78 degrees Celsius, so you want your melting point to be as close to that as possible. That's the end of part A. For part B, you take 3 grams of the product from part A, 10 cubic centimeters of deionized water, and then weigh out about 1.5 grams of solid sodium hydroxide. This doesn't have to be exact, but somewhere between 1.3 and 1.7 grams. Put all of that into a round bottom flask. Then add 2 to 3 anti-bumping granules to help control the boiling. You're going to boil it because you're going to set up a so-called reflux. To do this, you first of all take the hot plate, then put a aluminium cup onto the hot plate, put the round bottom flask into that and clamp it. Then you put a condenser in, and the condenser should be lightly clamped in the middle. Rubber tubing is attached to the bottom and the top of the condenser. The one at the bottom should be attached to the tap. The one at the top goes into the drain. Once you've set all this up, then turn the heat on to about 120 degrees Celsius, and once the solid has dissolved and the solution is boiling, then you let it reflux at that heat for about another 5 to 10 minutes. Once you've done that, you should take the round bottom flask from the heat and let it cool until it is at room temperature. Once it cool, pour it into a beaker of 5 cubic centimeters HCl while on ice. Mix the solution with a stirring rod and allow it to cool a little bit more using an ice bath. After this, filter the solid solution mixture using vacuum filtration again and wash it in the same way with cold deionized water to get this nice washed product. Again, you're going to recrystallize this solid using a minimum amount of hot methanol. In this case, the solid should dissolve up in 2 to 3 cubic centimeters of hot methanol, and you shouldn't have to heat it too vigorously. Again, once you've got everything dissolved, leave the solution to cool to room temperature for crystals to form. If you haven't got very many crystals when it's down at room temperature, well, then you can cool it down using ice to get even more crystals. Again, as was the case with the first part, once you've got these crystals formed, filter them under vacuum, wash them once with deionized water, dry them in the oven, and again, record the melting point. The value for this product from part 2 is 140 degrees Celsius.